Oh man, that was a thick purple pour.
Sounded like something from West County.
Yeah, no kidding.
Well,
Hey everybody, welcome to
part of the
Winemakers.
soul was in West County.
It's West
It was
County,
born
isn't it?
somewhere else.
I'm John Myers with Sam Couturi, Bart Hansen, Brian Casey over there in the theater seats, and our special guest today, Patrick Cappiello from Monte Rio Cellars, proprietor and winemaker there in Skull Wines, and Jesus Alleman, welcome, assistant winemaker. Thanks for coming over, guys. And you've got barrels. I thought we were getting a new barrel delivery when you pulled up. How many barrels you got out there on the truck?
There's 8 barrels of white wine on that truck out there. Yeah.
No, we don't have much sun. Obviously, no heat today.
Yeah.
We got a reprieve from the atmospheric river for
Yeah,
24 hours.
It broke. I thought, there was even like a sucker hole of blue sky this morning.
It rained 4.5 inches last night.
Is that what you got at your house?
No, from Shannon Lee.
Okay.
In Glen Ellen. So.
All right. My dad got like a little over 3 on the top of the Maya. That's the rain shadow, right? In Glen Ellen, right. you get an
right.
inch more rain than we would on the Mayakama side, western slope. So yeah, it was
wow.
It was in
nice.
18 hours though we got that rain.
Yeah. It was brutal.
Yeah.
West County was
I'm sure it dumped out there.
Yeah, I live in a tin roof trailer in Occidental, and boy,
so did you get any sleep? Yeah.
Yeah.
You see Tom Waits.
It's actually become a soothing noise in my life, to be honest with you.
Built-in white noise machine.
Compared to the Lower East Side of New York City, it's much different.
Is Tom Waits still hanging out in Occidental?
Yeah, we see him every now and again. Him and there's a couple. Les Claypool and the bassist from White Spud Panic also lives in West County. Those are our 3 celebrities. Yeah,
Dave Schools. Schools. Yeah, Dave Schools.
Those are the three main celebrities that hang out.
Hey, it is a bastion of hipness and coolness. I gotta say, yeah. I mean, Occidental. Do they still have the Union Hotel?
Sure, I get pizza from there all the time. I love it.
Nice.
Great little dive bar too.
Nice.
Yeah.
Like it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, welcome. Thanks for coming over.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Did you drive in this morning, or were you picking up those barrels somewhere?
We make wines at 2 facilities. We make wines at PAX primarily. PAX Mally's facility in Sebastopol, and then we just started making a little wine at Sonoma Valley Custom Wine, which is just here, just on the other side of town,
out in the ghetto where we all make our wine.
Yeah,
that's the idea.
Ryan McMillan is the winemaker there, and done a great job with us.
Shout out Ryan McMillan.
Yeah,
Sonoma Valley High, class of 2001.
Yeah, it's one of yours from back in the day, right? I heard, yeah.
Sam, in traditional style, I'm going to say, first of all, hell of a wine we just tasted. Beautiful. Without getting into your background, I just want to compliment you.
Thanks,
man.
that's great. I mean, this is an exciting wine to have.
Well, it's been a great show. Thanks for coming, everybody.
Drop the mic and head on out. It's a fun wine. This is the first year we made this wine, and actually, I have to say it's because of Jesus, who's here with us, that we make this wine. Jesse's Grove, which is the vineyard. Tegan calls this Spinker Ranch, but it's the same vineyard. 1900 planted Carignan.
Where?
In Lodi.
Okay.
Most of the 99% of the wine that Monte Rio Cellars makes, ironically, is in the Central
Lodi?
Valley. Yeah, we make one wine from Mendocino, and all the rest is in Lodi. And we can get into the reason why that is. It wasn't by design. When I decided to name my winery after a town in West County, I thought I'd be making a lot more wine in Sonoma, but I learned very quickly that my idea of wanting to make wine affordable, which, as Sam and some of these other guys in the room know, back when I was a sommelier, I was hell bent on making wine lists that were affordable, and making wine approachable has always been my desire in my career in wine, which is pushing 25 years now, I guess I've been in wine. Yeah. And so definitely a complicated thing to do when it comes to the vineyards on Sonoma Coast.
Where were you a somm?
I started.
That's a list.
Yeah. Do we want to get into that right away? I'm happy to go through the whole history of it. But,
the connection from Lodi to Monte Rio is it's Highway 12. It's all Highway 12.
That's
sure
exactly
right.
The point.
Yeah. You're on one end of Highway 12 to the other end of Highway 12.
It sure is.
Yeah.
So, to work with vineyards like this, so Jesus used to work for Jesse's Grove, who owns this vineyard. They also own Royalty, which we made as well, which is Turley's old vine vineyard. It's a Zinfandel heavy vineyard. And then the Bechtold Cinsault, which we also made in 21, is right there as well, and owned by the same family. So he just worked for them. That was his first assistant winemaker job, and that's when I encountered him. And then when he came over to start working with me at Monte Rio, he came with the I don't know, we call it a dowry. What's the thing called? When you
A dowry?
A dowry.
Yeah. That's actually pretty funny. Yeah.
He just came with these vineyards attached to him, which is pretty fucking awesome. Actually, he wasn't even working with me. He hand delivered the Bechtold Cinsault to me, the 1 ton of fruit that we got. So we became friends. He wrote me a very kind letter 2 years ago. Just talking about having had tasted the wines that we were making, Pax and I were making at the beginning from Monte Rio, and sent a really kind letter and invited Pax and I to come out and look at the vineyards with him. And then shortly after offered us a little fruit, and then he just kept hanging around the winery. And I was like, "Do you want a job, dude?"
So your background was working in the vineyard, or was working in the cellar?
It was working in the cellar. I was a bio major at Sonoma State, and I always thought that fermentation was super interesting, and that's sort of where I got into wine. And I don't know, I turned 21. I went wine tasting, and the next morning I wake up to a text message and say it from Greg Burns, and he said, "Hey, come on Monday." I had no idea. Showed up knowing barely anything about cellar work or mainly anything, and yeah,
And that was where?
that's in Lodi. That's Jesse's Grove,
Right.
the one that we're drinking.
Because Jesse's Grove is a winery,
It is.
also.
But
right?
they also own these like amazing heritage vineyards that are so special.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and then just tasting wines and getting to know the brand Monte Rio as a whole. And I always thought that it would be a cool idea to bring him onto those vineyards, because I know that he would really like it. And then he was crazy enough to offer me a job.
Jesus was working part-time for me. You know, my life is pretty transient. I'm doing old-fashioned brand building, as we talked about in the parking lot, but you know, going from a sommelier to being a winemaker, you know, there's a lot of layers to that, right? There's a lot of sommeliers that become winemakers. And, you know, when this project was a very drunken idea that Pax and I were having a conversation about after my restaurants had closed. So I was a sommelier at a bunch of places, owned a few restaurants that were iconic in the wine world in New York. I had unfortunate business partners that just shut the restaurants down, and I found myself at 45 years old, unemployed. Had only dreamed of owning restaurants in New York and never wanted to imagine doing anything else. And it all came crashing down, and I just started finding my way down the bottom of a Jameson's bottle. And my best friend, Pax Malley, reached out and said, "How you doing?" And I'm like, "Doing great." He's like, "Doesn't sound like it." So he invited me out to work harvest, and I was just entranced. I just kind of fell in love with Sonoma County, and Monte Rio is one of these things. We would take these trips. I was kind of actually chasing a girl at the time too. So I was kind of in this moment of falling in love with California and falling in love all at the same time in 2017. And I remember we would take trips to the coast and go through Monte Rio, and I was always entranced by this town. It's so fucking wild, right? It's such a weird, it's like a beach, it's like a river town.
And the roads like come together, but they don't make any sense.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, you know, the river.
I always get lost out there.
Yeah.
And you know, 9 times out of 10, your cell phone doesn't work. So like
Yeah.
Google Maps is completely useless.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And it's old Grateful Dead hangout too. They played so many times in that
There's
Quonset
some,
hut.
there's some epic like late 60s 25-minute Dark Star where they don't sing a lyric until like minute 17. There's some epic shows out there.
But even in the 80s and 90s, there were some great shows at the theater. Now we're totally getting distracted.
Well,
but
the
there
theater's
was
on
some
the
great
label, so it's not a bad idea.
But there were a lot of like
That's the
punk
Quonset
rock
Hut
shows
Theater.
and
Yeah.
stuff there. If I remember right.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Still on brand.
Yeah, it's
still
a-
on
that's
brand,
a-
totally.
Nexus of culture, the kind of culture that we
Right.
like out there for
Right.
sure.
Um,
Plus, there's a great little golf course
The amazing golf
I
course.
love that
Designed
golf
by
course.
Jack Nicholson. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're Jack Nicklaus.
with all those weird all the owl sculptures because it's across the river from Bohemian Grove.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another strange place in
Another
West
strange-
I mean,
County.
yeah, talk about weird energy.
There's definitely, you know, the roads and the rivers all come together. There's a confluence of weirdness that drew Patrick out of New York. I mean, right?
Yeah.
Patrick, I've always wondered how did you and Pax meet? Like, how did you guys become friends?
It's funny, you know, because the story has kind of got multi-layered. The first few encounters with Pax were not great. I remember, you know, because
He was probably trying to sell you wine.
no, he wasn't have to because so his partner at the time, Joe Donlin, whose name I'm not supposed to mention, but I did
oops.
anyway.
Right.
Nobody listens.
That's
Don't
a
worry.
whole layer of like.
That's a whole nother layer. Pam Malley will kill me. No, I met Joe Donlan used to be a regular at Veritas, where I was a sommelier, arguably the most famous restaurant in the United States for wine during the late 90s, early 2000s. And I was a somm there for 4 years. And so because Joe Donlan was a partner in PAX and also one of close friends of Park B. Smith, who owned the restaurant, PAX had a huge presence on the wine list there. And back then it was his first vintages, and he had these fucking bottles. They were so huge they wouldn't fit in our racks. And we used to have to deal with them in different bins, and the labels were all fucked. And whenever he came in, I remember just looking at him like, "You're the asshole that had you're the guy with the little penis complex that had to use these huge bottles of wine to put his wine in."
Like Tegan though at Turley with those fucked shapes.
Yeah, it's exactly what it was. Yeah, those. I mean, I think that was probably more a Larry Turley decision than a Tegan decision.
Yeah.
But and I'm joking when I say that about PAX, but I think he probably the bottles were not his idea either. And his bottles are.
Well, we've all come a long way in the wine business in general when it comes to those bottles.
Yeah, for sure.
Some of us anyway.
What
Yeah.
do you mean, Sam?
I don't know. Let's not talk about out of 10. That was a Frenchman's decision.
Yeah,
I'll blame
I got it.
Philippe.
I got
You
it.
can't.
There
you
is
can't retort.
we know that there is there's an alternative now.
I just ordered the lightest weight bottle that I could, made in America, from our friends at Tricorbron for our bottlings this spring. So
It has to be the bottle sitting right in front of you, because that is the bottle.
I got I have the Burgundy and then the Burgundy
yeah,
also. Yeah,
yeah.
mostly Burgundies. We do a little bit into the Bordeaux.
Wait,
But
did you ever finish your story?
no,
Which one?
classic.
Which
Okay,
one?
How you met
Wait, how
Pax?
you met
Oh,
Pax?
oh,
Other
so
than
yeah.
yelling at him about
Yeah,
his
yeah,
bottle
yeah. Okay,
shape.
so
it's always about Sam, Brian.
So that was when I first met him. And I think then, I don't know that he even remembers me back then. I'm sure he does. But we got a chance to know each other a bit there. I mean, I'm joking when I say all those things about the bottles, but it was annoying as a somm to have to deal with it. And then at that point he was on top of the world, and he was like 100-point Parker wines left and right, and making wine in a very different style. And I think probably then hanging out with a different crowd. And then when I opened Pearl and Ash, that's when he started coming around and hanging around the restaurant. And that's when we became really good friends. I mean, I realized very quickly, I think back then I looked at him as being kind of almost this untouchable California winemaker. And Pax has never had an ego. He's always been a very approachable, kind person. I mean, his history of assistant winemakers tells the tale. But I think at the time I kind of looked at him as being this untouchable person who has been maybe even a bit intimidating to me. But then when he started hanging out my restaurants, ordering Alamon and ordering Gonon and all these great Northern Rhone producers that I love, and Dovesat and Ravenel, we started to bond over wines that we were drinking together, and very quickly became very good friends. And that was from year one, 2013, when he first started hanging out at Pearl and Ash.
That when did Pearl and Ash open?
2013 we opened. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we stayed friends and,
Right.
and then continued. And then I started. That was after Pearl and Ash opened in 2013. Rebelle opened in 2015.
That sounds
And
about right.
that was when I started doing the little thing with Chris at Verity,
Right.
which was, and this kind of ends the story of mine and Pax's friendship. Not ends the story. The continuation of it was Chris Desor.
What was the name of that the book?
Called Renegade, which
Renegade.
means renegade in French.
That's right.
So Chris Desor, who owned Verity, and I started this little thing, basically like a Patrick Cappiello selections. We had some French producers that I liked, as well as California producers that I thought weren't getting, attention. And back then it was, the first California producer I started working with actually was Jolie Lade. Julia Weinberg actually introduced me to Scotty. I didn't even know he was working with Pax, but nobody knew the wines in New York. He was with a distributor that wasn't doing an awesome job at the time. And so Scott was kind of my first client that I took on just to introduce to sommeliers to. And then Pax jumped on board that really quickly afterwards. And then Michael Cruz, actually Levy Dalton introduced me to Michael Cruz. Back then, again, not a lot of those wines in California. It was not back then. It was just,
what was that like?
We ding the big names.
oh, is that?
I mean, Michael Cruz. You throw that's Levy.
But nobody knew Michael Cruz's wines back then. I think people knew in California, but back then, this is 2013, 2014. Sommeliers weren't talking about California wine the way they are now. Right. They were only talking about French wine and European wine. So, and I'm not saying. I think that the opportunity was there. Michael was making great wines. I think that luckily Chris had the idea of me kind of like shining a light on some of these producers and hoping that some of these other somms that were Franco-centric would kind of jump on board as well. And that's what happened.
Yeah. It was the rise of the more open somm, really. The younger somm.
Yeah. Yeah,
well,
for sure.
The Somms stopped wearing suits and started wearing shirts with skulls on them and
Yeah.
stuff.
Right.
Right? At least one of them
At
did.
least one of them did, yeah. Now it seems more common.
Took off the pins.
Yeah, I never had a pin. They would never. No, I would never be given a pin. I wouldn't want one.
Well, this wine is freaking delicious, and it reminds me of the area. I mean, it's like really fresh and vibrant. It has that tension of the acid and the youthfulness. It's delicious.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so this is how many cases?
We made 200 cases of this wine in 2021. Yeah, we haven't released it yet, actually. I mean, I've actually been waiting to release it on my website, and maybe I'll use this podcast as the reason to do it.
There you go.
Yeah, I I've never made, this is the first time that Monte Rio kind of jumped into this next level with really serious vineyards, and we'll taste another pretty spectacular vineyard next. Originally the idea behind Monte Rio was more about just table wine and making wine affordable and approachable, and so we make like a basic petit syrah. We make an old vine Zinfandel that's now a blend of a couple different vineyards, but kind of like in the realm of what Truly started with. It was kind of the model for me,
right?
And making that affordable, easy, approachable thing. And then we started making, made some French Colombard. We toyed with a few different things during the course of it, but Old California, as the label would dictate. I mean, basically, I sent my designer like a 60s era Charles Krug label, and I'm like, make it look like this.
Nailed it.
And then she did
totally.
it. I mean,
That's
yeah. So I think that the philosophy behind the winery has always been Old California, throwbacky, not only with the look, but the price. And also, also the winemaking. I mean, we've gone back to making wine the way, for me as a sommelier at Veritas, I would taste, BV George Latour from the 60s and then Colgan 2010, and no shade, but you know what? The wine that I was walking away being excited about at the end of the day was the older BV wines. And, if you look at that scenario with alcohol content and wine style, it was done more the way that we're doing it, or, the way that they were doing it in France. So, we don't use all the fermentations that we do take place. Well, everything I do is whole cluster. There's a semi-carbonic maceration that happens with most of the vineyards. So we start off, in tanks, seal it up for like 3 days, let carbonic start, and then we'll do morning and night pump overs once things get moving. And then we'll get like Jesus and I will jump in the tank, crush up the cap with our feet, after day 10 or so. And then all the élevage takes place in old barrels, basically whatever I can find used that's cheap, right, to keep the price point down. And then, we bottle 2 times a year, spring for the whites and the light reds, and then fall for the hardier reds. There's no over vintaging allowed at PAX, so we have no choice but to move that quickly. So the recipe is pretty simple, but yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
You were saying when we were in the parking lot, it's like you're building a brand here, and you're jumping in, and you've got to be efficient with everything you do.
For sure.
And it sounds like you're off to a very good start, obviously.
Yeah.
But that's a tough market to be in, man. I mean, you're playing against the big boys with kind of where your price range is and what you're doing, and fight the good fight.
Yeah,
dude.
I mean, 100%. I want to fuck Constellation as much as I can. Yeah, that's the goal.
That
Yeah,
should just be the next name of
Yeah.
our podcast.
I mean, it's it was always a thing when I was a sommelier. I always scratched my head as to why there weren't more people in California making wines that I could pour by the glass. I was always reaching for something from Spain or like the Cotarone or like Italy. There weren't a lot of great opportunities to work with California producers. Now I understand why.
Right.
Totally.
And we make a more affordable brand, Pax and I. So Monte Rio Cellars is my project that now I get to make with my friend Jesus here, and Skull Wines is a collaborative effort between Pax and myself that we make together, which is California appellation blends. And Jesus and I make a base wine for those wines: red, white, pink, and sparkling. And this year we made an orange version for the hipsters. So these wines are all like $18 retail. And they're all California appellation blends. Pax and I utilize them as kind of a Bordelais second wine kind of model. So we have barrels of wines that we're not using. We can throw into that as well, which helps us elevate what's happening here.
So it's all wine that you guys have produced. It's not
100%.
like a bulk wine project. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and so those wines are leaner margins too, but that's the one that's the one that I really am intending to fuck Constellation with. That's the goal there, is to produce more and more of that. Skull Wines as a winery is at about 5,000 cases in 21 vintage. Yeah. Monte Rio is at about 4,000 cases, and Skull this year will jump up to 6,000 cases. The red is being the biggest SKU, but we're selling in 30 plus states, plus Canada, Australia, now in Asia a little bit as well. We're trying to branch out and make put our mark on it, and the only way to make any money from that price point with that is to make more wine, right? Yeah. Right. So we're learning it as we go, and it's a lot of responsibility, which is why we're working with Ryan, and that facility makes it a little easier for us to make some base wines.
Space.
Yeah, And honestly, like work orders, like, you know, it's funny. I was like, now I understand why people like think winemaking is so easy. Like, it's pretty easy when you just walk in and write stuff down. Right. We do things a little bit more hardcore at PAX. It's like you get shamed if you're not digging out at least every third tank. You know what I mean? Exactly. And I'm 50 years old with 3 herniated discs in my back. Doesn't fucking work so well for me anymore.
Well, and the tanks over there are a lot bigger than they are at PAX's.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, actually, it was funny. We walked in one day. We were looking for Ryan everywhere, and like all of a sudden, out of the bottom of it's such a huge tank. Ryan slides out the bottom of it. I'm like, holy fuck, bro!
And he's not a little dude either.
Sweaty head to toe. He's like, you know, everyone got it. Every now and again, you got to do one to show them how it's done. And I'm like, yeah, I get it. So, yeah. But I mean, I'm 50 years old, so it's not, you know, it's not, I'm not, you know, our interns are in their 20s. Yeah, there's a reason we hire them.
Exactly. They didn't live the life you lived.
No.
To say one thing about the wine, I guess this is a wine podcast. What I keep seeing when we bring in thoughtful producers who are making wines from Lodi is that they're fresh and vibrant and you know, my like preconceived notions growing up that like Lodi was where the giant overwrought zins of the, you know, bottom shelf of the farm, you know, the supermarket were coming from, and clearly that was style and not location.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
Well, so if you look at the rise of Zap, like Zap was what kind of saved Lodi, but also kind of set it, right? Set it that Lodi Zin had to be high alcohol and sweet, at least in my interpretation. And I think what's going on now is people are saying, look at these old vines and look at all the life they have in them, and look at the wines we can make out of them. Right. You know, I worked at Kenwood in the 80s, and we used to do a lot of Clarksburg fruit and a lot of Lodi fruit for the vintage red, vintage white. You know, it was $7 a bottle was the idea. And it was, the Zinfandel was definitely going to that overripe kind of thing. But the vintage red, which was a lot of Carignan, it was a lot of Zin, a lot of probably Petite. It was that kind of freshness and vibrancy. And, you know, it no one ever knew how long it aged because we drank them so quickly.
Yeah. I mean, actually, Jesus probably could speak to this more because he did work at a winery that had a tasting room. But, you know, I think that also there's an idea where this was the way Lodi wines were being made because they just were being made that way. Right. It doesn't necessarily mean that they couldn't be. I mean, Jesus, did you find that people came to those tasting rooms with the desire to want to have these big, bold Zinfandels? Is that?
They did, to be honest. And then a little bit what we were trying to do is, I was trying to make wines that were on the opposite section. I was like, hey, we can have acidity. We can have this wine that tastes really good for a really good price that could compete with other bigger wineries. That's what we were trying to do. And I mean, looking at Patrick, and I was like, well, he can obviously do it and make it a really good product.
I mean, I think Greg Lufflove, what he does is pretty cool in that vineyard as well. I mean, so he's making, he was a big inspiration to you, right?
I mean, Greg Lufflove, huge influence on my winemaking, and I'm a really good friend. I help him prune a vineyard and drive a tractor, and that Pinot. He has a Pinot vineyard in West County, close to where Patrick lives. So we were out there, and he's showing me how to do all these great things that I can then translate into what we're doing with our little vineyard in Lodi.
Yeah, you just talk about that.
Yeah. We're actually doing we're farming a flame tokay vineyard in Lodi.
Cool.
It's a crazy site just because every other row is interplanted with olives. So you've heard that pretty classic, right? It's very classic.
How old are the vines?
1860s, 1880s.
Wow.
Yeah. So they're
own rooted.
Yeah. They've had a lot of training, different trainings. So it's fun to go and prune. But it's a crazy site. We've been working on it since last year.
Yeah. How are the olives? No, I'm just
well, I mean, it's funny. We actually didn't she offer us some olives?
Yeah.
The woman who owns the vineyard is a really interesting lady. Yeah.
We're working on it, and actually I still have to prune it, so maybe
we did make wine from it last year though. We the birds we realized we need to net it, but the birds got at it.
The birds love those big berries.
Yeah,
flame tokay.
Yeah.
So we got like 0.7 tons off the vineyard.
0.6 of a ton.
Yeah. So we made 2 barrels of wine, and it's delicious, super fun.
Where does that come in the ripening curve?
We picked it. I mean, it's crazy. There's 2 plots in the vineyard. So there's the main plot, and then north of that there's a couple other rows that were really vigorous, and those were much riper. So they came in at an average of 21 breaks.
When did we pick that?
But is it like a real early harvest, or is it?
It was.
No, that was, I have to look. My Instagram was whatever day was when Tegan got me hammered. No, I was at Tegan's house and he got us totally drunk playing blind till you're blind. That's a game you play at Tegan's house. When you crash, it's a crash pad for all of us because he lives in Victor and he has an extra bedroom, but he barbecues. Yeah. So have you played blind till you're blind yet?
When Bart and I were there, he literally had, I think, 2 sawhorses and a piece of plywood down. That was his furniture.
Yeah.
And we didn't change much.
we didn't spend the night. We were in and out, but we hit it pretty hard.
Yeah.
We've talked about doing a Lodi round table out there at his place.
Well, wasn't he was like converting the old butcher shop and like he was going to make a tasting room.
It's a winery. Yeah. It's almost done. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
It's a cool little right across the street. Yeah. Right across the street from arguably the best dive bar in Central Valley. Right. No place. Yeah.
Nope.
Don't mention the name.
Yeah.
It's unfortunately not open. It burned. So sadly it's not.
Shit.
Yeah.
It really?
Yeah. It burned last year.
Fuck.
Yeah. And I don't know if we're going to reopen it. Yeah. It's sad. Huh. Don't even get Tegan going on that, man. He'll start crying the minute you talk about it.
I mean, if you're going to do a fundraiser for something.
I'm down with that. Let's do it. Let's do a fucking GoFundMe I'm down, man. I'll donate some wine. Start an auction.
So do you notice that, so because people like yourself and Tegan are making these wines from Lodi, do you think that the prices of grapes will actually, or are people
sort of work against yourself, right? You start to elevate
in
the
a
Lodi
way, but
scene, and then
it's a lot of these families that have been growing grapes for a long time, and it's on one hand it's probably nice to give them a little bit more money for what they're doing, but on the other hand, the whole reason you kind of shifted your model and started making wine from those grapes is that they were affordable.
Yeah, actually, we should taste the next wine because it'll be a good interlude into that. Cool. But I while we're doing that, I'll tell you for sure it's a problem, but like you said, it's like well deserved. But the reason we're there is for this value. But I will tell you that I see a lot more people that I know from Sonoma County that are pulling up with trucks in Lodi while we're out there. And I've introduced a lot of winemaker friends. I mean, the Glabs have started to work from Ryan, have started to work with the Vermentino vineyard that Pax and I make wine from. Martha Stuman as well. Yeah. Guthrie family also has been working out there. I've introduced Craig Ledbetter, who's the farmer who farms not these vineyards, but my Sangiovese vineyard that we make called River's Edge. That's his family's vineyard, but there's more and more people that are coming out there. I'm excited for people to come out there. Obviously it does drive up the price, but in the end, like you said, the people deserve it. And this is a great example. So we're tasting a wine called Teresi Vineyard. It's the first year I made it. I met Nico through a guy named Brent Mew. Brent's winery is what's Brent's winery? Brent Mew's winery is it's gonna come to me, and I'm sorry. Anyway,
that's right. Let it flow.
So he was at he's friends with Rosalind Reynolds, who's the assistant winemaker at Pax.
We know Emma.
She's been on the show.
Yeah. So he stopped by to see her, and he's like, "Dude, you're making wine in Lodi, right?" I was like, "Yes, I am making wine in Lodi." So he's like, "Well, I want to introduce you to this guy Nico that I met at some wine fair, or I don't remember the venue that he was in, and he met him, but he said he's a farmer. He's working regenerative farming, and it's pretty special. I think you should talk to him." So I got his number from Brent, called Nico on the phone, and Nico answered the phone. I said, "I'm so interested to hear what's going on with your vineyard." He said, "Patrick, it's funny. If you would have talked to me 3 years ago, I would have told you that I never even had what he said was I never had an organic vegetable until 3 years ago." So this kid is like true Central Valley farmer. You know what I mean? Fourth generation farmer, doesn't believe in any of this crazy stuff that all these hippies believe in West County. And so he was out one day spraying for some sort of mite in the vineyard, his canister ran dry right as he was like 5 rows from finished. And I feel like this is a story you hear about all the time in France. He was like, "Fuck it, I'm going home to my kids. I'm done for the day." That summer, there was a mite that came in the vineyard that decimated his entire vineyard except for the 5 rows he didn't spray.
Oh, no way.
So for him, it was like a light bulb moment. Yeah. And he was like, "Holy shit, there must be what's going on here?" And it sent him down this deep dive of trying to understand farming and regenerative farming. He went to Fresno State, got a truly conventional, farming degree, and he's farming the same way his grandfather did and all this. So he basically just started doing regenerative farming without even knowing he was doing it. He just started like YouTube videos and reading books and all this sort of stuff. And now he's doing amazing things like, one row he'll plant down pumpkins that he then is taking to feed his cattle that he's then using for the manure. So true biodynamics happening. One row is tomatoes that he gives to his grandma to make sauce. One row is herbs. And so the yans on this vineyard are like, I think it was, what was it, like 380 or something like that when we took the yans on. It's like insane. It's the most healthy vineyard we've ever worked at. The wine ferments so fast and we do literally nothing. We don't do anything to any of our vineyards anyway. We don't inoculate or anything, but this just moves so quickly. We don't even have to worry about it. It just goes. So this is we bought this fruit with the idea it was going to go in a red blend because we didn't really know much more about it than that. We fermented it and it turned out to be the best wines we had in the cellar. The vineyard is it's 65 acres, half is planted to Zinfandel, half is planted to Petit Syrah. And we did this blend just for him.
Like interplanted or
no, we
separate.
There, yeah, one on the east, one on the west. And we fermented them all separately. And Jesus and I were so impressed with how these wines were tasting. We decided we were going to do a little 200 case bottling, just basically to pay an homage to Nico and for all his hard work and thank him. So we just called it Teresi Vineyard. This is a 50-50 blend of Zin and Petit Syrah. Again, we've only released this just on the website, but never anywhere else. But it's, for me, it's like,
it's delicious.
Yeah, super fun.
And again, whole cluster.
All whole clusters, semi-carbonic maceration, fermented separately in a mixture of concrete and stainless steel and aged in old wood barrels.
So how do you get acidity but maintain tannin?
We harvest early, man. We're out there picking at 22, 23 Brix. A trick I learned from Martha is this idea of going out twice, going out early and doing a pick. And Pax does it as well. It's not an uncommon thing for a lot of people to do, but Martha does it with such ferocity because she's so against adding anything to her wines, especially acid. And even though it's something we can do, she wants to try and think of an alternative solution. So she'll go out twice and pick early at like 20 Brix and then go back to like 23 Brix. So you're averaging it out, but now you have this acid component in the cellar that you can bring back in. So the Teresi Vineyard, we harvest twice. So we have an early and a late pick in this vineyard as well. And a lot of the vineyards, I mean, obviously, the 2-3 tons of Jesse's Grove Carignan, we're not picking twice, but these sort of things that we can get a little more fruit in, we'll go 2 times. It's a little more work, but it gives us the ability to pick a couple different vineyards at the same time and truck it together. We truck a lot of our fruit, especially in the high heat of the summer, we truck in refrigerated trucks. So we try to fill those trucks again for economy of scale, like to keep things affordable. Because I was, a restaurant owner for a long time, I know how to work a spreadsheet pretty well. So I'm pretty focused on, I'll never forget the time that I asked everybody at the winery for their cost of goods sheet.
Right.
And they all looked at me like I was what is it called? I think I called it a COGS. And they were like, beat it, Poindexter. Yeah.
I'm co-fermenting Pinot and plums over here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Shout out.
There is no cog.
Oh my God.
There's no cog for that, bro. No. Anyway, so this is Teresi, which now is we're gonna make our Petit Syrah, we were just making a generic Petit Syrah for Monte Rio. It's gonna be Teresi Vineyard going forward. So yeah.
Cool. And are you still working with Mission grapes?
I do. I still make from Summers, which is like, that's a good example. I was going to say when you were talking about things getting expensive, when we first started making that Mission vineyard, I like the Tegan approach. Like, don't put the name of the vineyard on it, just make it. And of course, Pax made it that year too. He wanted to make Mission as well in 19. We both made it at the same time, and he put Summers vineyard on there, the motherfucker. And and the farmer called me after we got some press, and like Andre Mack did a write up on it in Food and Wine, and that was the front page was Pax's mine right next to it, Summers Vineyard Mission. And then 2 days later, I got a call from the farmer being like, "Hey, so the fruit's getting more expensive this year." I'm like, "Thank you, Pax, you motherfucker." But I mean, like Pax wants to do the right thing by the farmers, which is what, I learned that from him as well. It's why I do this. But at the same time, looking at Tegan's approach of maybe keeping your cards a little tighter to your chest is the better way to handle it. Yeah.
But I just remember hearing that you guys did like 7 different fermentations on the Mission at first. Like, it was like,
we did
warm concrete, cold concrete.
Exactly.
It was like insanity.
So this methodology
and then ended up blending them all back together.
Well, because the reason why we did that is Pax did this with this Chenin Blanc project that he started doing, and you could just have Pax on and tell you all these stories. I could just tell them for you. But him and Jamie Motley, when they decided they were going to make Chenin Blanc, they went to France and they visited every Chenin Blanc producer that they loved. And made all these different ferments. One was Guibertot, one was Clos Regard, one was Collier, and they labeled them all differently. And then they were all kind of that different thing: hot, cold, cement, concrete.
So they took the inspiration from the different producers,
exactly,
and then recrecreated them with the same fruit in their own cellar.
Exactly, with Buddha's Dharma.
Yeah.
So I wanted to utilize
a total
that.
learning
exactly
process.
because we'd never made Mission.
Right.
Pax had never made Mission.
Right.
The only people we knew that did make Mission were Brock and Raj. And they both said, whatever you do, don't do any of that hipster whole cluster of carbonic shit. You can't do that with Mission. You have to destem it. So Paxton and I, of course, like, fuck you. We're not going to destem it. If you tell us we have to, we're going to do the opposite. So we were a little nervous because we didn't know what it was going to turn out to be. So yeah, we did all of these different ferments. They all went into barrel, had different labels. But then Pax took his shit that he wanted. I took mine. We did 20. We almost took the whole vineyard that year. I think Adam Savelli Fresh is the only one getting fruit out of there besides us. And we took 20 tons of fruit out of that vineyard. And that became a big part of the Skull 19. Now I only get 5 tons of that vineyard. That's the big change that's happened
because of other people.
Yeah, which is great. I'm psyched to share it. There's a lot of really nice people in that vineyard now, and making how much Mission can you sell? Right. And then we made Angelica this year after Tegan accosted me when we were drunk at his house about the fact that we weren't making Angelica.
So we heard about this, but I've never tried it. But I heard about. I think it was you.
That was like the original, probably some of the original California wine.
Yeah.
Okay. I think Bedrock has done.
Yeah, I don't know if they have it going. I don't know if they ever released it.
He hasn't
released
it yet. Morgan hasn't released it yet. Yeah, Tegan released his,
and Tegan had one.
And Brock has too. Brock has made it and released it. Yeah.
So explain it for us.
So the history of Mission and how it arrived in California is based on the Spanish missionaries, right? That's why we call it Mission, because the Spanish missionaries built a chapel, and around the chapel they planted a little vineyard. That vineyard was at that point, the Mission grape comes from Canary Islands, Lis San Pietro, it's called there. Went to South Latin America, where they called it Pais, and then it came up the California coast with the missionaries, and that was the same grape varietal. But back then, the missionaries were making, they didn't have winemaking equipment. Where they were making it, they would just foot crush it, and then they would add brandy, and then it was communion wine. And then during Prohibition, it was a legal thing to make. So people, in Central Valley were drinking, and all over California were drinking Angelica.
For religious purposes.
For religious purposes, of course.
Right.
Praise God. And so this form of wine was still made that way. So basically, there's a whole way about how it's made now. If you talk to Tegan, he'll give you a very strong opinion about how he makes it and how it should be made. We heard from Randy Caparoso has become a very important part of Monte Rio. He's a friend and an amazing, ding him up, please. I drop names all day long, bro. I'm just a product of these people, though. You know what I mean?
I hear
for me, I'm not dropping my names trying to make myself look better. Like, I'm not standing on their shoulders. I'm lucky enough to have them lifting me up. Yeah. And that's the winery is 100% built on the generosity and kindness of all of these people that I mentioned as an outsider coming to California. If it wasn't for people like Tegan and Martha and all these people that I mentioned, I would be nothing. So for me, I hope to do the same. You know what I mean? I want to offer that same opportunity.
Total street cred to you for diving in and getting into the business dirty. Because there's a lot of people that don't, and so good for you for
thank you.
And seriously, cheers.
I appreciate that. Cheers. But so Angelica was this thing based during Prohibition. People developed a taste for it because it was the only wine they could drink. But it's very sweet, syrupy, very high alcohol.
Because they pick it late, alcohol. Right? Didn't you pick it late?
Doesn't matter when you pick it. In the end,
because it doesn't ferment.
It doesn't ferment.
Right. You pour the brandy in, and it don't ferment.
Immediately stops. Yeah. So it's like whatever the brix is the brix, and we pick it at 22 brix, and we basically we foot crushed some of it, put it into the tank, and then let it 24 hours on the skin because we wanted some color extraction, and then we pulled down whatever we had into a Mueller, and then Tegan was busting my balls about. He's like, if you're gonna make it, you have to make your own brandy. I'm like, bro,
that's what I was gonna.
How many jobs do I need?
That's what I wanted to know. Where are you getting the brandy from?
Here's the thing: there's a Flame Tokai vineyard that we've been obsessed with called Old School. And Jesus can tell you a little bit about the vineyard because he was the one who connected with the guy who owns it. But Randy Caparosa is like, this is the vineyard. If you want to make Flame Tokai, you need to make this vineyard. It's planted in what? 1800s.
It's mid 1800s or something.
Yeah. It's the oldest vineyard in Lodi, I think, and it's planted a Flame Tokai, and we've been wanting to get fruit from it. And the lady who owns it is like, I sell all the fruit. And Randy told us that this guy makes brandy. So then I introduced him.
No. Yeah. He was like, this guy makes brandy, but he only makes brandy out of it, and you were gonna have to talk to him if he wants some fruit out of it. We called him a bunch of times, and then he wouldn't reply. And
but then we needed brandy.
Then we needed brandy, and then he answered. Amazing guy.
Angels sing, right?
Yeah. So we did 2 experiments with our Angelica. So the first one was 24 hours on the skins. We took off the juice, and then we added the brandy from the Flame Tokai. 20% alcohol at that point. And then the other, we did 2 barrels. That's the first one. The second one was 72 hours on the skin, so a lot more color. I don't know if you guys seen Angelica before, but it's very pale, like kind of strawish color. And then this other version, which is fermented maybe 2 bricks, down to 20 bricks, and then looks more like an orangey.
Yeah. Almost like a Manzanilla sherry, like it's got like a little color to it. It's really interesting. And since we made these 2 different kinds, I mean, basically there's the Tegan way, which is the way we said quickly. And I don't want to sell out Tegan, especially if the TTB is listening. But by law, technically, you're supposed to let it start fermenting before you fortify it, which is like again like an antiquated law that probably just because they in their mind the ABC was headed in the right direction.
It was all about taxes.
I'm sure. Yes, exactly. So this other version was like was the proper version, but now we have these 2 barrels. So we decided that we're gonna bottle one, and then we're gonna start a Solera with the other. So we're gonna do 10 vintages. Just fuck it, let's just like lean right the fuck in and do it. So yeah, that's Jesus' project. He's the it makes sense. Jesus is making the Angelica.
Yeah, Jesus should be making Angelica.
and at that alcohol level, you don't need a distilled spirits license, right?
No, because you have to take the wine to the distiller, and then they fortify it, and then you bring it back. So it's a bond to bond. You transfer it, and then you transfer it back.
Right.
Yeah.
So what do people drink this and like just enjoy it on its own, or is it something you want to have with like meat and cheese? Or
I mean, it's like drinking a sweet sherry, and a lot of people make it. Actually, we found out you guys should have Randy on the show. I mean, that guy is like amazing. I mean, if you want to talk about Angelica, he's the guy to talk to. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Well, that was the thing about up in Lodi. Would Randy do the round table?
Right. Well, and, I mean the Perlegoses were always talk. Yeah, so totally.
But there's actually a lot of people that make it. We found out with him because he brought a bunch to dinner one time.
Like wineries that make it, or just like people are making it at home?
Wineries.
Huh.
Yeah,
and they're selling it somewhere. Presumably.
Yeah. I mean, the old time. So the idea was that during Prohibition they were drinking it, so they got a flavor for it. So after Prohibition, it became a common. That's why they call it Angelica, because it was like the communion wine. And people actually wanted it, and then it was very sought after for a long time. And I think obviously that crowd has slowly died.
Right.
I can imagine most people that were around for Prohibition are not around anymore. No, but yeah.
There's probably some bottles though in some of those homes.
I know some of those old. Yeah.
Dude, I found an old bottle that they actually was at Bottle Barn that Barry has that I want to buy, but I guess Morgan had already set claim to it. So Morgan, if you're listening, let's drink that shit together. But it's like I think it was from the 70s, a bottle of Angelica from like I don't remember the producer, but
probably like Spastiani or something.
Yeah, I think it was Spastiani. Yeah.
I think I've seen that floating through either Morgan's cellar or his Instagram or something. Yeah.
All right, so tell us about it. So how did Skull start?
Skull started when I made when I bought 10 tons of Petit Syrah, and I was looking at the tank and being like, I don't even like Petit Syrah. What the fuck did I do this for? So I had this great idea that I was going to make a red blend, and Pax like, that always works easy. Nothing easier to sell than a red blend from California. I'm like, you're going to see. I'm going to put a label on it. So actually the label came. The girl who designed the label is ex-girlfriend of mine. She designed a couple of the labels for me, but I had it in just kind of Abe, Shona, and I were going to make a can wine project together years ago. This was the original idea. And then Abe and I didn't make it happen. Give him a ding. Yeah. And then Pax and I started talking about resurrecting it. But this was the packaging I designed. So a skull in a can. Exactly.
Okay.
So that was the original idea. It was just going to be like can wine, super easy. Again, but for me, the skull comes from my punk rock skateboarding past, because that was what it was a symbol of it, right? That was it's always been a symbol.
And there was like
there's a natural wine
there's a famous
too, right? Isn't there? I'm sorry, Sam.
It was like the graffiti with the graffiti artist with the skull on the cell phone.
Oh, skull phone, yeah.
Skull phone, yeah. That was like
mine as well.
That was like the shirt that you. I mean, when I
always
think
wear that, yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
That was like the early,
yeah,
New York scene, right?
Yeah, I don't know if that was an inspiration for Carolyn who did design the label or not. Okay. I mean, guys, there's similar vibes for sure. But I mean, I was already doing skull for Renegade was the logo as well. Yeah,
exactly.
So, but I think,
just a question for you.
Yeah.
So your thing is your thing, but isn't there a common label that can be used for natural wine more in France?
You got to listen to the show that just dropped today with Jack Sporer. That's
halfway through.
Well, we didn't get to his pet net. That's the Brutal.
The Brutal.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Is that similar to? Doesn't that have a skull also?
I imagine
it can. I think it can. Okay. Like the Brutal thing. listen to the show. The Brutal thing is, it has to be experimental. I think maybe 0.0 or at least like that thing.
No,
but it's like a crowdsourced label.
Yeah.
Like if you meet those criteria,
You can use it.
You can put Brutal on there
Yeah.
and anything else that you want.
Yeah.
So I always thought that was part of your skull thing was part of that.
No. I mean, again, it's just, for me, it's like I look at like what's this like right on the back of your iPhone. Everybody knows what that is.
Right.
That's Apple.
Yeah.
And I thought, it's so genius to have beautiful packaging that becomes iconic. The Prisoner. I mean, honestly, The Prisoner is an inspiration for Skull in all intents and purposes. I mean, I'm not looking to sell it for $280 million. Not that I would be opposed to it, although I think I've
Somebody's on the
shat
phone. I think
Constellation enough times that they're not going to offer me any money.
No,
But that used to be when I was at TriBeCa Grill. We poured that wine by the glass. Like Mark Snyder brought that wine in from Angel Share when it was still cool, and it was like old vines, and it was polarizing
Napa
packaging.
Valley,
Exactly, it was fucking
yeah.
legit. It wasn't a bulk wine project, and that packaging always inspired me to be like so punk rock and like have this kind of terrifying image and a super simple idea behind it, and so that's kind of, in fact, the actual DBA of the winery is California Skull Wine Company. Which is very much a Prisoner wine company, kind of like like tip of the hat, but that idea of that all came kind of together from that. Like, how do we make wine simple, approachable, California appellation, always a blend, always changing? It shouldn't, no information on the wine. What's nothing more punk rock than just being like, drink it. You know what I mean? It's wine.
Yeah, good.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Wait, so how many SKUs do you have for that particular?
21 we did in 21 we did red, white, pink, and sparkling. The sparkling is a forced carbonated, sparkling white version of the white wine we make. It's a white blend, but we do forced carb. Basically, blowout, which Abe did for a while, was an inspiration on that for me, because I thought, what an inexpensive way to make a sparkling wine delicious. And people shit on forced carbonated. Why? We can sell wine so cheap, and it's everything else we have. Modelo's fucking forced carbonated, White Claw. Everything else you put in your body is forced carbonated. Why should wine not be?
Yeah. How about those LaCroix everybody's crushing?
Exactly. And then the fifth SKU, which we added this year, is orange, which we did extended skin content Fermentino that we did for 2 different batches. We did an early pick and a late pick. And the early pick, we did 30 days on the skins. And then the late pick, we did 10 days on the skins. And then we spaced that out where we were able to press off the clusters together. And then we had 2 free run components plus the press component. Super, it's so yummy. I think it's like going to be, yeah.
Super good. That's some winemaking logistical magic.
Well, we had one intern.
Jesus and the intern?
No, Guy, who was our intern. Yeah, Guy he made that wine for sure. Every day he'd just like without fail, he'd get his bathing suit on and go for a swim. Just all 48s. It was like 6, 7, or 8 48s lined up, and he would just jacuzzi it all day long and get the cap down.
Oh, you gotta have photos of that.
I'm sure we do someplace. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so how do you get that wine out there? It's like people see a skull on it, but maybe they're fans of Monte Rio, or they just like how do you approach someone with that wine?
Well, it's funny. It actually was the idea of a sales rep that sells wine for me in upstate New York that works with David Bowler, Cameron. It was his idea. Cameron Mills. I got to give him props for that. He was like, you should make orange wine, and like, do people drink orange wine still? I mean, I'm from New York Somm circa 2001. Yeah, orange wines were cool then, but I thought they went away. But it turns out the more people I've told, like, I'm like, okay, I'll make a little skin contact. It's easy. We can do that. So we did skin contact, and Martha, who's done skin contact, helped give me some guidance on how to do it. But we made it with the intent of it just being a couple hundred cases for Bowler, because Gab Bowler loves that shit. And he was like, yeah, we'll definitely take it. And now everywhere I've gone, I've talked about it to every distributor that I work with. Like, we definitely want some. So it's already one of those things that I think is probably going to have some success. But it's like always that thing. Like, I'm always so crazy because I'm like, oh, if it worked well for 200 cases, I should make 3,000 cases. Right. And then next year I'm going to have 3,000 cases of fucking orange wine. Right. And these are going to have to drink that for the rest of our lives. Like, I need to understand balance. Balance has not been an easy thing for me to establish in my life. You could tell by looking at me. It's nothing I've done well with.
Let's do the bio moment, because punk rock skater from Rochester, New York. How do you end up somming at these prestigious restaurants in New York, and then owning these amazing restaurants, and now you live in a trailer in Monte Rio and make skin contact for Medina. Like, let's follow.
How does that not make sense? What's the question?
No question. I just wanted to sum things up for everybody. No, let's talk. Let's go. At least let's get from like Rochester to TriBeCa Grill or something.
That's an easy story. Yeah. So when I went to school, I grew up in a born again Christian family that did not drink. So I didn't have a lot of exposure to wine. So my wine exposure came late in life. I didn't grow up with wine on the table, but I worked in restaurants since I was 15. Busboy, dishwasher back in Rochester, New York, at a place called Crescent Beach Hotel, and worked there for many years. And then after that, I got my first serving job at Chili's in Rochester while I was going to college, and then I started bartending, and that's when I kind of got a bug for booze. And we used to whatever wine we had by the glass. I was like so interested, and I grew up in the Finger Lakes basically. Right. So I started making my friends go on wine tours with me, which was just us drinking out of like communion cups at like shitbag wineries and getting hammered. But I thought I was doing something that was like next level. So I got married to my college girlfriend, and then moved to Cleveland, Ohio for her to do her master's degree. And while I was there, I got a job at this place called the Baricelli. It was my first fine dining restaurant experience. I'd been working at a place called The Cooker. My GM recommended me for this job. He's like, you're going to be great at it. Never worked fine dining, never been around wine, but the chef owner had this kick-ass wine list. It was basically from his cellar. First growth and second growth Bordeaux, all kinds of super Tuscans, a lot of Rhone wines. And I noticed very quickly that back then we weren't pooling our tips. All the servers that were around me were making much more money than me. And I was like, what the fuck? And I realized very quickly they were just selling these expensive wines and making more money. So I was like, well, there's got to be something in this. Right. So 100% my initial desire to learn about wine was out of greed. Yeah. And there was a guy who worked with me, a kid named Nathan Kendall, who actually eventually became a senior editor of Wine Spectator. Amazing story. He was... he's a journalist, but living in Cleveland, Ohio, where he grew up. His dad was super into wine, and he kind of like turned me on to wine. And he told me to get Kevin Zerley's Windows on the World, which is my first wine book. That book, yeah. Everybody, I think, yeah. And so that was what got me digging him up. And so I learned about wine in that capacity. And then when I moved to New York, my ex-wife is an opera singer, and she wanted to move on with her career there. So we moved to New York, a logical movement. And the chef owner,
the opera scene in New York is better than Cleveland.
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay,
a little bit. So the chef owner, Paul Manillo, he was like, you should check out TriBeCa Grill. David Gordon, who's the wine director there, is on the Continental Congress of Chefs and Sommeliers with me. He'd be the person to talk to about a job. So David Gordon interviewed me, gave me a job as a server, and I basically spent every minute I wasn't on the floor in the cellar working. Yoshi Takamura was a sommelier side by side with me there. We worked together in the 4 years. I learned so much. I mean, I spent a year as a server. David promoted me to sommelier after the first year, and then I was working on the floor as a floor somm. And then from there, Tim Kopech recruited me to work at Veritas. And then Gilt was the next restaurant, which I was the wine director at the New York Palace Hotel. When that closed, I opened Pearl and Ash, and now we're caught up. Yeah.
We're good. Okay.
Okay. So now you've mentioned Martha's name a lot. So do you want to just tell us a little bit about your relationship with her and how you got interested in her wines, and then how obviously you guys are friends.
Yeah. Well, honestly, it was the sommeliers that worked for me who were. My restaurants there were only female sommeliers that worked for me, and it was not necessarily by design, but for sure diversifying our community that's chock full of white dudes has always been a desire for me, because I feel like it's like it's not a good look, and also it's not a nice thing to do as far as the world of wine that we live in.
They're so disarming. Like when a female somm comes to a table too, it's a much different experience than it.
I mean, I used to have to go to tables when Kim Precocian, who was my somm, my first somm, and
she was rad.
Yeah, and she basically was the one who continued to create all of these amazing female somms that worked under her and with at our restaurants. But she used to get people that would be like, no, I want to talk to the sommelier. And I would be like, and she'd be like, they want to talk to you. I'm like, well, what the fuck's the problem? Yeah. We want to see the sommelier. I'm like, you were talking to her. Goodbye. I got to go. Yeah. I'm fucking busy running a restaurant. This person knows more about the wine list than I do. Yeah. And if you don't like it, I'm going to throw you the fuck out. No, I didn't go that far, but I should have.
Thought about it.
Yeah. But so so Martha, they loved Martha's wines, and it was with Kim that served me my first Martha Stewart wine, and I was super impressed. And she was probably just still working at Brock at the time, and so then I met her when we did the time that we actually connected was when the wildfires happened. We started we did a PAX,
Oh,
myself.
you guys did that like whole Somm cares.
Yeah. We started a charity thing basically, and a bunch of somms pouring people's wines by the glass. And the Palais, we did the welcome dinner in conjunction with this charity. The charity was called Winemakers and Sommeliers for California Wildfire Relief. We really thought that one through.
Just rolls off
I
the
think
tongue.
we own the website still, but I did it with Pax and my ex-girlfriend at the time, Sarah Morgenstern. We started this thing together, and we raised $250,000 in one go, and it was pretty great. Yeah.
Oh no,
Yeah.
I'm just bell just went off. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
We're all gonna get in
Sarah.
a little trouble with this
Sarah.
one, I think.
Oh yeah. We did it for a few years. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
That was the girl that you were chased to
that
California.
was the girl
right?
that I
Yeah.
chased to California.
Yeah.
Yes, and
You
then
were
eventually
not-
broke
you
my
were-
heart.
You weren't paying attention.
It all
during
checks
that
out.
part of the podcast.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't catch that one, but it's okay. But so Martha,
Yeah.
so I met Martha through all this, but then at the
Because she
charity,
was kind of part of that whole little Pax's scene that he had over
well, she
there.
makes wine with us there.
Right.
So it's me. It was back
like
in the
the
day. Get
coolest
ready
little-
to ding your glass. I'm gonna name a bunch
It's
of
the
people.
coolest little
When I
incubation.
first started working there, it was
right.
there was 8 of us, 7 of us.
Yeah.
It was myself,
Yeah.
Carlo Mondavi, who makes Rain,
Yeah.
Scott Schultz, who makes Jolie Lade,
Yep.
Martha Stewart from Martha Stewart Wines,
Yeah.
Pax Malley, as you know,
Yeah.
Rosalind Meadows makes Emmy,
Totally.
Jason Rupert making Ardor.
Yeah.
That was the 7 of us that were all making wine.
Yeah.
And 2018, it was a pretty magical time.
Sounds like a fun place.
It was great.
Yeah.
There was a lot of toes being stepped on and a lot of arguments unnecessarily happening. I think that's what finally made Scott be like, I have to get the fuck out of here. It's too many like people. And I mean, he's in a much better place working up in Healdsburg with Barron now. But yeah, it was amazing for me. Can you imagine my first vintage was with all those people
Yeah.
Yeah.
and all different wine styles? I mean, you know,
Totally.
it's like
All those varieties.
it's crazy.
all the- yeah.
I mean, the
All
interns,
those opinions.
yeah, all those egos.
Oh,
Yeah.
winemakers.
No,
All
they're
that
actually
yeast.
pretty.
What'll make
yeah.
the egos better? Bring a Somm into all these
Yeah,
winemakers.
Yeah, so true. But I learned. I mean, I continue. I mean, it's amazing how shout out to Rosalind, who does actually make all this shit work, because
Right, she
like to have
basically
all these
runs that place
for
right?
sure.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, Pax is for sure.
But
I mean, you know, the assistant winemaker. If you want to ding some more, look at what Pax has done with the assistant winemaker trajectory of that winery. The first one was Duncan from Arnaud Roberts.
Yeah.
Second one was Ryan Glab from Rhyme.
Yep.
Third one was Scott Schultz from Jolie Lane. Then Jamie Motley from Jamie Motley Wines, and Rosalind. I mean, you kind of, if you get that job, you kind of almost have guaranteed of like a hit brand
Right.
that's going to launch, and it's because of the hard work of all these other people
Right.
and Pax's generosity, kindness, and willingness to share his space. He doesn't need to do that. He can make all the wine he needs in that space and not let any of us in there. But I think he really likes having us around. And it's a bunch of creative minds. I mean, Jesus can attest. The interns don't want to leave. We have 3 interns that are trying to come back, right? Isn't it this year? Yeah. It's wild. And for them to get, and it's a long fucking harvest, dude. Martha brings in like Chardonnay that she makes for a Verjus project. I think like the second week of September, or no, the second week of August.
Yeah.
Of August. And we don't stop until Pax brings in the last Syrah the second week of November. It's the fucking longest internship you could possibly go. And they get crushed. I don't know how they do it. Yeah.
All right, let's talk about Piquette.
Oh yeah.
When did you have your first one, and why did you decide that you wanted to get in on that game?
So the first Piquette I had was served to me by I'll ding for Miguel de Leon from Pinch Chinese, and he has a good collection of them. He served me one from Todd Cappiello. Todd Cappiello is the OG, right? He's
friend of the body. He's been on the show.
Yeah. He brought Piquette to the country. I mean, it was being made in France forever, but he made his first finish, I think 16 or 17 for Wild Ark, which I tasted with Ryan Glab at Pinch Chinese, and I was in both. Ryan and I were like, "Fuck, we should make this. This is so cool." And my first vintage was 19. I made a little batch of which then it was Colombard, Chardonnay, and Chenin, and I froze some of my French Colombard juice in a keg to use as my dosage to re-ferment it before I bottled it. And it was pretty ratchet. The keg froze in the freezer in the tasting room. It overflowed. Pax almost fucking killed me. Juice was everywhere. Fruit flies everywhere. He was like, he was not happy with me. So I did that in 19. I made 60 cases, and it became very popular. And at the time, I think not many people were making it. And now a lot of people make it. And I make 4 different SKUs. I've grown to start making now seasonal, which we fruit like lambic beers. So it's the Piquette Project is the 3rd project that I do. And that is 4 different Piquettes, all seasonally released. all with a different kind of riff on the word Piquette. So the spring wine is called Piquette. That was this year. It was Trousseau Gris and Pinot Gris that I fruited with raspberry, very much an homage to Cantillon Rosé de Gambrinus. Spring wine, the summer wine is Blanquette, which is Chardonnay and Sauvignon Blanc that I fruit with lime, like salty margarita kind of vibes.
Sounds freaking delicious.
Yeah,
sounds dangerously delicious.
7% alcohol. You can take it down easy.
Yeah.
Orangette, which is the fall wine, which is a extended skin contact Vermentino that I fruit with apricot. And then Rougette is the winter wine, which is Zin, Petit Sirah, and Sangiovese that I fruit with blackberry. Okay. We hope to do blackberries from the coast fresh this year if I can get the interns to put some gloves on and risk their life.
Pick some berries.
Wait, where are these available? You have to go through.
Piquettes are all just wholesale, just through distributors. It's selling $20 wine on the internet. It doesn't work. And plus, it's so shitty to like pack that shit up and sell it UPS. If you want to buy my wine, go to your local distributor retailer and ask them to buy them. It's way easier for me. It's already in your state. Like it's way better for all of us. And buying locally is better anyway. I mean, I'm kind of anti DTC. I'm anti wine club. And I think if you're making really high end exclusive stuff, it makes sense. But for somebody like me, even though it inevitably could mean more money to the bank account, it's way better to keep the community happier and to keep my distribution chain working and to keep retail shops in business. You know, those people saved us during the pandemic. Yeah. They were the reason all of us were able to stay in business because they were selling fuck tons of wine to people in a time where they didn't know if they were going to get sick or not. Yeah. So, you know.
No, that's how I got to know your wines was from Barry. At Bottle Barn. And it was like I could buy the French Colombard, the White Zen, and Martha, same thing, got her wines. And when you're looking for something different or interesting that you've never seen before, then it was cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and especially at a price point where my wife lets me walk in with $100 bill. And then whatever I can leave with is what I get to take home. Which is
really how we should all deal with the Bottle Barn. Not for Barry's sake, but for our own sake.
Exactly.
Our own bank accounts, because it can be dangerous in there. James Joyner knows.
Yeah. As soon as I found out about the back room, I knew I was in fucking trouble.
Oh, don't even mention the back room.
No, I know. Yeah.
And then, and you felt like you couldn't get out.
Yeah. Smart.
And I never drink them.
All right, so what grapes did you let drop off? You said you dropped off. You're not doing the White Zen.
Not making White Zen. We make direct to press Zinfandel for rosé now,
right?
But it's for Skull Pink, and that's cool because the label goes from white to pink when it's cold, like the Coors Light Mountains.
Right.
It's amazing how much better that sells than a wine that I put dry white Zinfandel on. I can just put a fucking label that changes colors, and everybody wants it.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
French Colombard. No,
I'm not making anymore. No. Well, I want to make it. We're hoping we're trying to find some in Lodi. Actually, Nico is going to plant some in his vineyard because it is a varietal that's important to Lodi, but it's actually become harder to find. The vineyard I was working with, it was lucky. Martha and Rosalind were kind enough to get me to peel off a little fruit for me the few times I made it, and I loved making it. And I think Jesus and I want to make it, but we haven't been able to find a vineyard, and we'd really like to find one in Lodi. So we're going to plant some in Nico's vineyard. I actually snuck some cuttings back of Palo Verga from Berlotto that Nico is planting in his vineyard as well. So we're basically using a little quadrant of the vineyard that we're starting to use as a kind of a trial ground for new stuff, because Nico wants to do fun shit too. He doesn't want to look at these same vines that he's been looking at all these years.
Yeah.
So in our last episode, we heard stories of sneaking cuttings from Petrus strapped to people's forearms and biceps, and then somebody who worked in that winery was going back to South Africa, took the cuttings of that Merlot and weaved them into wreaths, put red ribbons on them, and just shipped them right home.
Yep.
So without divulging too much self-incrimination. How'd you get these cuttings in?
There's like, I think you talked about a situation that you can do. There's a lot of art fairs in France.
Okay.
You can find a lot of things made from wood.
Yeah. All right. Okay.
Gift for my girlfriend.
Yes. Yes. Whether or not she exists. Yes.
There is no girlfriend. There is no girlfriend.
She goes to another school. You don't know her.
I have a girlfriend in Niagara Falls.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm glad you guys do that joke. I thought that was a very specific thing to where I grew up, but yeah.
All right, what varietals do you want to play around with that you haven't had a chance to?
This year we're gonna make. So we made Mencia. Jesus has been really pivotal, and because he grew up in Lodi, he moved. When did you move to Lodi?
You grew up in Lodi.
I mean, I was born in Mexico actually, and then I moved to Lodi when I was 15.
Okay.
And then I barely even paid attention to the vines. They're everywhere.
Yeah.
So I barely even knew that they were I never really understood that.
Hidden in plain sight.
Yeah. And then just
it's like the railroad tracks.
And then as soon as like that thing clicked, and I was like, "That's cool. What is that? That's cool. What is that?" Some of the older vines and some of the cool vineyards in Lodi, and then just getting to know people after working in the industry. And then we met Ron Silva, great farmer, Portuguese decency, and then he has a bunch of cool varietals that we got to work on. So
every year, Jesus and I have agreed we're going to make a white and a red varietal we haven't made before.
Cool.
Just to continue to grow.
Nice.
And what did we do in 22?
Last year we did Torontes, which was fun.
Mm-hmm.
This next year we're trying to do some Malbec.
Yeah. We also what else did we make in 22? We're about to bottle it.
We're about to bottle
the red grape.
Mencia.
Let's talk about Mencia for a minute, if you don't mind.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a Ron Silva, this guy who has this vineyard. Jesus and I went and looked at the vineyard. He gave us a list of all the grapes he had, and we looked. And I said, "What do you want to make?" He says, "I want this. It's a collaboration. You know what I mean? Like he's my employee, but he's also my friend, and he's a colleague, and he's someone that I look to as someone that can sharpen me and keep Monte Rio better." So I was like, "What do you want to make?" And he wanted to make Torontes. He wanted to make Mencia, and our Mission vineyard got fucked with the frost this year. So we normally wouldn't want to add a lot of extra SKUs, but we're only going to be making like 250 cases of Mission. So now this Mencia turned out to be great, and so we're bottling on its own. And the white Torontes is good, but it's just going to be part of the Skull White. It's always we look at this education for us as the opportunity to make something new and then move on, unless it sticks, and then continue to make it. But it gives us And where is
Mencia? Where's Mencia from? Like, what is its background?
It's a Spanish grape. Yeah, Canary Islands and elsewhere, right?
Yeah. And then, I mean, we haven't really had a lot of whole cluster Mencia. And so that's what we kind of follow the same Syrah protocol for that Mencia. So I think it tastes fairly different.
What's your frame of reference for it? Because like with the Mission, you could get like paella, like some Mexican.
Well, there's Mencia coming. I mean, like Envenati, like plenty of those guys are making Mencia in Canary Islands and in Spain. There are examples of it. And Raj Parr started making it at Fallon Farms. So didn't ding him. I didn't even say his name yet.
Raj.
It's hard to keep up with me. Your fingers are so tired.
I'm gonna have a bruise on my fingernail after this one.
But he makes it, and so we tasted his. But yeah, I mean, I think. I don't know. I mean, we looked at the grape list. I was like, fuck, Torontes. I mean, all I know of that is from Madeira. So why not try and make it? Like, what? There's no harm in. I mean, we're talking about 1 and 2 tons. It's not like.
I mean, that's what I love about it, though. It's not like, oh yeah, you know what? I've wanted to work for these grapes for years or anything. It's let's try it and let's see what we can do with it. And then you're doing it your style, and so the frame of reference is how it turns out, right?
Yeah. I mean, and was the thing when the Mencia was a surprise. I mean, I was, Jesus. Now when I'm on the road, what I do for the winery is I'm there for harvest, making the wine side by side with all these people, and then I'm there for bottlings, and I fly back to check in every now and again. But the majority of my time is spent on the road doing sales because I do work in the wholesale realm. So Jesus is literally taken over as cellar master and seller and running the cellar, and also making sure that everything is in line as we go through. So we have conversations about where the wines are at, what needs to happen. But he definitely, for sure. But like we reached out about the Mencia. The Mencia was getting a little reductive, and I was like, "What do you want to do?" He's like, "I don't know. Let's rack and return." I'm like, "Yeah, great, do it." And so we're figuring it out together. Yeah.
Just understanding what to do with when it comes to that. And I know that Patrick's on the road most of the time, but we kind of just have to go by taste. It was getting a little reductive. We tasted the lees. The lees was going a little sour, so it was time to rack and return. So then that's what we did, and I think it's in tank.
It's great.
It's gonna get bottled.
Good. Yeah, we just put it in a tank. It's really good. Yeah. Pretty excited actually.
So 4 or 5 years now on the road, selling these wines, and basically changing sides of the table from what you'd been on for your whole career,
which is kind of cool. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it's kind of cool when you're on one side of that, and then you get to be on the other side because you kind of know what you appreciated when people would come in and sell you wines, and you kind of can cut through some of the bullshit, right?
I mean, dude, 100% I have an advantage over anybody else making wine in the world. I mean, I know how to talk to sommeliers. I know how to do this. I know how to talk to consumers. There are a lot of great winemakers in California. Yeah. Some of them don't know how to talk to their like employees, let alone to people who are going to buy their wine. They're best staying in the cellar, but you can't do that in this day and age. Yeah. If you're going to make wine and you're going to create something, it's great. You can be creative and make the best product in the world, but it's fucking competitive. Yeah. You have to be out there and you have to actually, you either have to be connecting with consumers directly, or you need to be out there talking to gatekeepers, whether we like that they exist or not. They exist. And now they're all different than they were when I mean, it's not even like I can lean on the friends that I had to buy my wines. Every market I go to,
different jobs now,
completely different. Yeah. All of them are on the wholesale line world now, essentially. So, but I mean, knowing how to be kind to people and knowing how to talk to people about wine and sharing your excitement about it, it's really as simple as that. Yeah. And I mean, for me, I love getting in front of consumers. I love being in a room. You know, this is the first year I waited this many years before I would do a winemaker dinner because I wanted to be able to actually call myself a winemaker. I think that it's, you know, I'm as much as Pax if Pax was here, he would break my balls. And, you know, he likes to do that because I still have a lot to learn. But, you know, what defines a winemaker? You know, that's the question as well. So there's a lot of layers to doing all of this job. And, you know, the chemistry of wine, I get better and better and better at doing, but inevitably every harvest, every vintage, every ferment, there's a question for Pax who's got 25 years. And why wouldn't I ask him those questions? Yeah. But I think one of the ways that, you know, being able to talk about what you're doing and the reason you're doing it, just like we are right now, and talking to consumers about it, that's so exciting for me. Yeah. So I waited until this year. This is the first year. Also, there was a global pandemic, as we all remember, that's kept me from getting in rooms in front of people, talking to them about wine. But this has been the real experience. And for me, I'm on tour basically doing winemaker dinners. I've insisted that every distributor I'm working with sets me up with a restaurant so that I can get in front of consumers, because that's really the only way to spread the word. Talking to gatekeepers, talking to sommeliers, talking to merchants, yeah, that's going to help, but they're not there every day talking to the consumers themselves. And unless I'm doing staff trainings at all these restaurants that are selling my wines, I need to be on the ground talking to the people that are drinking them while they're drinking them. Yeah. And you know, that's what
sharing the story.
Yeah.
You basically asked my question better than I was going to.
Oh, cool. Well, it's interesting. I love that I get to represent you sometimes going to talk to people, because you know what, some people are like, oh, how can I make money off of this wine? And some people just want to know, how can I sell it with the story of the wine? Or everyone has a different approach to selling wine. So, but if you have that toolbox, and then you meet someone, you can be like, oh, okay, I understand what they're asking. You're like, okay, we can sell you this for $15 a bottle. You can sell it for $18 a glass. You can look good to your boss, but also your customer is going to be happy because it's a kick-ass wine. You can actually talk that language a little bit when sometimes people come in and they're like, oh yeah, I bought a vineyard and blah, blah, blah. And you're like, okay, great.
Yeah. No, it's true. You nailed it. Yeah, you nailed it. Yeah. That's the thing. Yeah.
I mean, Brian, you've been on the other side now has it been a year to say you've been on the other side of the
4 months?
Has it only been 4 months?
It feels like a year.
To Sam, it feels like a year.
Right. But 4 months, I mean, what do you think? You're never look back, right?
Oh no, this is great. I mean, it's finding the right place though, Bart. You know.
I know. If you were at a said winery down the street, you might not be quite as
I wouldn't have taken the job.
Right.
Yeah.
It's also fun. I mean, what a cool time to travel in this country. I think what do we call it? Post-vaccine? I don't want to say post-pandemic and make anybody upset, but it's cool to see all these like chefs and sommeliers and other people that have gone back to their hometowns and are doing cool shit. Like I never thought I'd be talking about places like, you know, Asheville, North Carolina, or Wilmington, North Carolina, or Jacksonville, Florida, where cool shit is happening. There are cool restaurants and cool retail shops, and people are drinking natural wines, and there's a lot of interest that I don't think was in these areas.
Shit, you're wearing a Guantanio's shirt right now,
dude. My homie, Whoever thought great pizza would be in Lodi? What the fuck?
Like the best pizza in California right now is in freaking Lodi. Who knew?
It's pretty wild. Yeah, it's so true. Yeah, but I mean, now I've developed Google Docs with lists of, because people will reach out when they see on like social media that I'm at all these places. Look, where should I go here? And now I have lists for almost every city. I mean, it's the coolest thing. Like, you know, getting great tacos in random places, or that doesn't happen actually. There's really not any good tacos.
That's why you come back to California.
There's only good tacos in Texas and in California. I'll be honest. Every time somebody tries to do a taco joint like in Florida, I'm like, oh cool, this will be great.
More fish tacos.
Yeah, exactly.
Big old mayonnaise sauce.
Yeah, God.
But the pendulum always swings. That's the thing. Is what I find is cool, because I'm older now, is that the pendulum always swings. It seems like the wine industry swings towards corporate, and then it sort of swings back and everything breaks up and then separates a little bit, and then I'm sure it'll swing back the other way. So I think right now is an exciting time to be in the wine business because people are experimental. People are excited about things. People want to experience different things. They want to know who's making their wine, who's growing the grapes. It's like it's a cool atmosphere right now.
It's true. It matters. You're right. And I think that's like you said, the pendulum was that way. I mean, how did Mondavi and all these old school guys build these brands? I think in an old fashioned way, and
hand to hand.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And that's the motto behind all this, not just, that third element of all this, whether Monte Rio, I always say it's three things we stand on: naturally made wines, old school ideals, and great value. And, like making 13.1% alcohol Zinfandel from Lodi, that's, aged in old wood and fermented in stainless steel, I don't think is such a far cry, back in the 60s. And, it seems crazy now. People think I'm nuts when I do it. And I have to answer old timers that buy wine in some random wine shop in Texas are like, you can't make Zinfandel that's 13% alcohol. I'm like, well, you got it in your glass, bro. It seems like you're enjoying it.
Yeah. I mean, there were some brands that built themselves on making those wines,
I mean, the old Louis Martini wines, I have tons of those wines from the 60s. I drink them all the time. They're fucking low in alcohol and they're way more alive than, no offense, but like 1994 Turtley's Inn, which I know Tegan or Aaron did not make, so I can throw shade.
Chateau Montelena Zinfandels from the early 70s.
And it was funny. I talked to Kelly White about Whole Cluster Zin and who was doing it as well. Yes, get it. And she was like, Chateau Montelena didn't have a distemper until 91. Wow. So all those Zins and even Cabernets back then, which was another proof of concept. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's people think it's wild. I mean, I think that there are more and more of this kind of stuff happening, and I could drop a bunch more names about young producers that are doing the same shit that we're doing and doing it just as well, if not better. And it's proof of concept. And I'm not trying to say like down with the old dogs or the Parkerites or any of that shit, but it's like you said, the pendulum swings, and who knows, maybe in 10, 20 years there'll be a new wine critic that's dictating that we should be drinking 16% alcohol, 100% new woods,
or an AI bot.
Yeah.
Chat GPT.
Right.
200% oak.
Yeah.
Put it back in new barrels. Rack and return into new.
RP 6.0.
Let's hope not.
Right.
Can they crush the soul out of wine anymore?
So I do want to ask my question though.
Please.
What have you learned in these last 5 years out selling your wine on the market that you wish you had known when you were buying wine for these restaurants?
Not to make ruby red. Which was the first wine I made.
Yeah, that's right.
No, honestly, I mean, I think I don't know that I've learned. I don't know if being on the road has taught me as much as being in the cellar. I think that a lot of not saying that I knew it all on the road already. I think that I'm learning a lot about this younger generation is probably one thing, but it's cool to learn about them as a whole because they're very interesting version of this country, right? They're interested in different
share
things.
Because we're all curious.
They're not interested. They're you know what I mean? A lot of them, there's a whole new set of people buying wine that don't have wine experience, that are interested in wine, but in a much more kind of innocent way. Yeah. So, and also not being able to reference, our idols is something that we have to consider during all of this. So I used to drop names like Gonan and Alaman and all this sort of stuff, but these people have never even had those wines. Or DRC.
They can't get those wines anymore, right?
They're like French guy.
Exactly. Don't care. Tell me more about the vineyard practices. And I think that Martha's, again, going back to her influence on me, the one thing she's always taught me, not being dogmatic about the winemaking, because it is the thing, right? We are at this precipice where natural wine, it's such a question, and like being judged by some people, whether they're peers or colleagues or whatever, about what you do in the cellar and secretly behind doors. And I'm very transparent about everything I do. If you want to ask me about any of the procedure on any of these wines, sulfur ads, whatever, I'll happily tell you. It's the most boring fucking conversation ever. But Martha was always like, I try to focus more on what I'm doing in the vineyard and why that's important, Patrick. And I think I'll concentrate on that. And so I think that that's great advice because I do get stressed when I think about
better at
adding
it this
sulfur.
show.
The idea of adding sulfur is scary sometimes because I'm afraid, who am I going to piss off? Is some hip Oakland wine shop going to buy my wine now if they know I put 30 parts per million of sulfur in my wine? And I used to lose sleep over it, and now I could give a fuck less because I'm making way better wines than I was when I was trying to be 0-0.
Yeah. I gotta give that a take.
I don't know if the ting is good or bad. I haven't figured that out yet.
It's good. No, it's good. It's good. I mean, you're on the track of what we talk about on the show all the time, which is the wine is the vineyard. The wine is the vineyard.
Yeah.
And what happens in the cellar is a function of what that vintage is, what's going on, like in the atmosphere. You have to just make good wine.
Yeah.
You can't like follow some formula, whether it's the Davis Fresno formula of, 100 parts per million of this and 200 parts or the 0-0, because reality pushes those things to make the wine that you have to make.
It's so true.
Right? So it's the vineyard.
Well said.
The vineyard is what matters.
Well said. Yeah.
And if you don't add sulfur for the matter of just not adding it, then maybe that's not the right decision.
For sure not. I mean, especially when you see what comes out the other end of it. I mean, it's and I have a lot. I mean, like Evan Ludowski is a very good friend, and I think he does an amazing job of sticking to his guns, and he makes very good wines. And I think Evan is, but I think it's because Evan takes the time to care for those ferments to make sure you have to.
And
you can't make a lot of wine.
You have to be heads up.
You can't make a lot of wine. Yeah, and Evan makes a tiny amount.
Heads up on it. You have to. Be attentive, because if you just go, it is what it is, then you miss the point.
Yeah.
So,
and I think that, for me, that I can only think of a few people like that are doing 0-0. Like honestly, like Jason Rupert was, as we talked about earlier, he does it with Ardor. Evan does as well. But I always have a hard time really thinking of other, even for me, the thing that tilted my scales is when I started thinking about people like Foyard and LaPierre, and gone on, and other producers that I know when I visited that
they don't have a glass big enough to ding those names.
No, yeah, right, yeah. You need a Liberty Bell.
Yeah, exactly.
But but again, when I look at my history of being a sommelier and traveling so much, when I was taking these notes and asking these questions, I never really thought about why the fuck I did. I never looked back at any of that stuff. Right. But now that I'm actually making wine, I'm like, they were the most important visits of my life. And feeling comfortable knowing that there is a small amount of sulfur going into the wines that were my idols. It made me all of a sudden take a moment where I was like, okay, I need to rethink this. Why am I feeling like I need to be 0-0? And because I was feeling pressure from people who I thought I wanted their approval. Yeah. And then I've realized now that I could give a fuck about their opinion about what I'm doing. They're not paying my bills. They're not concerned with me. They didn't even want to lift me up. They wanted to punch me down, and that's a fucked up thing to be. Why? Like what a twisted, like kind of what's Stockholm syndrome to have that I'm being I'm being held to. The people don't even make fucking wine. Right. Pax is always like, what wine did they make, Patrick? They're listening to what they're telling you about what you need to do, and it's 100%. Like exactly like fuck them. Yeah. And I'm sorry if they're listening, but fuck you.
And you know what the best part about your wines are? Whenever I take a sip, I want another sip.
Thanks, man. That's the biggest compliment I could be paid.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's my idea of a great wine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Should we
nice.
have it?
I mean, Sam, nice. Oh yeah, I got Patrick coming in on Friday. Like just kind of like
threw it in. Oh hey, Patrick Cappiello. Yeah. You heard of him?
And then here we are, and it's like, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, this is an honor. I mean, I knew about the podcast, and I mean, it's like I think everyone that I talked to, the most listened. But as far as like when I talk to people about things that they listen to, because I'm on the road all the time listening to shit, and people are always referencing the podcast across the country. So congratulations,
number one wine podcast in the world.
Is that true? I'm not surprised.
For sure.
Yeah, we're like,
I mean, but it's you guys are obviously making waves, which is great. So thank you for fighting the good fight, and I'm sorry that it took me so long to be on here. I appreciate you inviting me.
We had to catch you on one of these moments that when you were on the ground.
Yeah. I'm literally in town for one more week, so yeah.
You want to give the deets just if people want to reach out and buy wine?
I would say reach out to
the young kids say
I would reach out to the distributor, man. I mean, you can contact me, but cool. Like I'm on Instagram, but I would say contact your retailer and your distributor.
There's no DTC on any of these, right?
I have a website, MonteRioCellars.com has the wines, but just a few of them, and I'm happy to sell them. It's just
and how many states are you in?
30 states. Quebec, Ontario, UK, Australia, about to open Japan with Yoshi. Cool. A fair amount. Yeah, pretty much everywhere on the anywhere that touches water, I'm selling wines in, and then the Midwest, which touches water too. Yeah, I don't think there's a state, and then not much in the middle of the country yet. I'm slowly working my way into the middle of the country.
Well, and shout out some of the, you mentioned Bowler, shout out some of the distributors that you're working
Kellogg Selections, just Stephanie Kellogg, a boss bitch, like in the Carolinas. She's doing an amazing wine. Alchemy of the Spirit. Oh man, I'm going to fucking forget people and I'm going to get in trouble. Alchemy of the Spirit in Florida, Rootstock in Texas. I just signed with AOC in Tennessee. Up in Massachusetts, I'm with Charles River Wine Company.
Charles Reeve,
California. I'm with Grand Cru Selections. Look at this. Yeah, you want to
assistant winemaker coming through.
Arkansas Wine and Spirits. STEM in Arizona.
One of those Google Docs, right?
Reeve Gauche. Reeve Gauche, which is a Carson's company in Georgia. Uncorked in New Orleans. Shout out to David Kenny, the man. Libation Project in Minneapolis, in Minnesota. Wine Trends in Ohio. Heirloom Imports in Ontario. Dukov in Montreal. What am I forgetting? Left Bank in Wisconsin. All awesome people. Right. I'm very lucky. I mean, they're all like medium-sized distributors that are all pretty family run and all with like-minded wineries. I mean, Martha and I are in so many portfolios together, which people would always be like, "Oh, isn't that problematic to be in or packs?" I'm like, "No, it's great, dude. When I go to market and I'm with people I can hang out with and want to spend time with." Yeah. Maverick in Chicago. You going to SWAF? You ever been off of that wine fair?
No.
Super fun, dude. Yeah, super fun. You should check it out. I mean, it's right up your alley. I mean, all of our friends are out there for that.
Cool.
Yeah. I mean, I don't do a ton of wine fairs because I feel like, there's a lot of them.
Right.
But that one,
it's a lot of giving your product so somebody can sell tickets.
It's so true. Yeah. I know it's true. It's true. Yeah. But I'll be out there in Chicago for that. So cool. a lot of travel coming. I'm up in the Northeast and in the Finger Lakes and in a bunch of areas up north in Canada in the next few months, in the Midwest too. So yeah.
Will you just leave a couple wines at Bottle Barn so that those of us that live here locally can?
Yeah, but no, Barry has my wines at Bottle, as well. Okay. And I mean, Beyond Napa carries my wines. Locally, there's all kinds of just retail shops. Miracle Plum in Santa Rosa.
Cool.
Yeah, I know.
R.I.P. Miracle Plum.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah,
but the wine club is still.
The wine club
open.
exists.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And actually, I just heard that the bakery that they've been working with all the time, Marla Bakery, is going to go into the old Miracle Plum space. So it's going to. The vibe will stay.
That's
the vibe
great.
Will stay.
Man, it's sad. I love that place.
Yeah. Shout out to Sally and Gwen.
Yeah, Gwen's the best. Yeah, it's awesome.
This gave me sadness.
The bummer of the miracle. You know what happened is like there's all that cool stuff that you got at Miracle Plum, all those like food, this like turmeric that I would, and then people discovered it, and then they started putting it in their own places, and it started to cut them out from the underneath. I think.
And it's like those cool places where people always go, "Oh yeah, you guys had the coolest spot." And it's like, well, then why didn't you fucking come here?
Right?
Yeah,
twice a week.
So true.
Right?
Yeah.
Totally.
All right. Well,
so give love to your local retailers,
please.
Totally. Yeah,
please.
All right. Cool. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah. Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah.
Thank you. Pleasure to meet you guys.
Yeah. Me too. Yeah.
Any shout outs? Is this going to come out before or after April Fool's Day?
Don't know.
You're right. That's a good question.
Possibly.
Maybe.
I think you should release it on April 1st and then say special guest Robert Parker.
It might come out.
It might come out the day before, April 3rd, March
30th or whatever.
But we want people to listen.
Oh, damn, they'd listen. I'm sure.
We'd probably get some listeners for Robert Parker on the show.
You can always go back and
But spring release is
16600 spring release is live. You should have an email in your email inbox.
Robert came in already called with his edits.
Oh, of course, fucking Robert. Did he really call with edits? No, he didn't email me this time. All right, he did.
Yeah.
Calling me out on all my bullshit.
Yeah.
Perfect. There was we made some edits on it. I've got, I always leave a couple typos in there just to, mix.
No, people got to know it's a real person.
Yeah,
right?
totally.
This is not Chat GPT.
No Chat GPT on that.
I love you guys so hot on this fucking AI shit.
I got a 14-year-old daughter who one of her friends just got supposedly busted for writing a report.
Oh, wow.
The teacher says, I ran it through my AI thing, and it 92% says it's created by
she's just really fucking smart.
What's crazy about teachers running shit through AI detectors?
That's the whole thing. So my wife ran it through her 4 AI detectors and didn't come up with anything.
So now this is the job we're making teachers do. This fucking sucks.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Great.
Right. Yeah. My AI can beat your AI though. Yeah.
I'd like to have just any eye. Fuck. Just give me some intelligence. I don't need an artificial, natural. I don't care. Just give me some eye.
Sonoma Valley High.
Yeah, exactly. There wasn't a lot of there's Sonoma Valley. There's no I in that word.
All right, thanks for stopping by.
Thank you guys.
Good luck getting the barrels back to
yeah.
Let's get those barrels.
Back to Sebastopol, back to PAX. Yeah, we're bottling on a week from today. No, we're bottling on Thursday. We're bottling on Thursday.
What do you got in barrel?
That's some more Sauvignon Blanc. We the Sauvignon Blanc that we're bottling on Thursday. We didn't have enough gallonage of because people wanted. I started doing a lot more kegs. I've been a big believer in kegs and we're doing more. So I just got a last minute keg order, big keg order for a place in Florida. So I needed to up my gallonage, and that was going to be some of the components that were going to go into the Skull White that were here that we Sauvignon Blanc that we made. So I'm transporting that back so that we can make up the Sauvignon Blanc content of Monte Rio. It's the cool thing about being able to do this. It'll make it more fluid.
Yeah, totally.
So yeah,
it's a good model.
So there'll be less Sauvignon Blanc in the Skull White this year.
Right.
But more kegs of Monte Rio Cellars.
Totally.
And less wear and tear on the environment, ideally.
No bottles, totally.
Yeah.
I'm all about
Wait, and whatever happened to the cans?
We never made them. It just the model doesn't make sense for me. Selling cans for that expensive, and it's just not owning a canning machine is problematic. And the waste. I talked to Joel from Las Harris.
He's our neighbor.
Yeah, so he was telling me the waste thing, and he was going through. And
yeah, they lost like 20% on their line.
Yeah,
we do much smaller canning lines that doesn't have that loss.
Okay,
but yeah, that's unsustainable at that level.
No, yeah,
totally.
And just to make the price point for me, it's like making it cost, what would be under $8 for retail for a can, I guess.
Right. Well, that's the thing that didn't make sense as a buyer too. Is like, I'd rather buy a bottle than buy this can that you're going to make me spend $6 on. I can sell it for 10.
Exactly. Well, that's why we're doing bag and box.
The math doesn't make sense.
You're doing bag and box too.
Yeah, so I saw that Morgan posted it, and we've been wanting to do it, and Rhyme has been doing it. I've just been waiting. It's like, I don't want to add another thing. And I also, when Rhyme did it, I was like, we were talking about doing it, and I don't want to ever, Megan and Ryan I love, and I never want to step on their toes or steal their thunder. I'm like, you go, like, do it. And then when Morgan posted, I'm like, well, fuck it. Now, if everybody's onto it, let's do it together.
Yeah,
let's do it together. And so Morgan and Chris reached out to me. They're going to show me what they're set up, and we're going to do some Skull Red in box this year.
Cool.
Yeah.
This is what I'm talking about. How the pendulum swings. My grandpa, when I was like 12, had fucking wine in a box in his refrigerator.
Yep.
So did I. Franzia was like regular.
Yeah. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. I mean, I did when I did the Playboy show. I actually did a review of box wine.
We didn't even talk
if you
about
haven't seen it.
Right.
If you want to, if you haven't seen it, you can check it out.
All those Playboy videos are still like exist in the internet, right?
Yeah, they're on Amazon. They're on YouTube. Tasting Notes with Patrick Cappiello.
Okay.
That was that was great. I mean, I did awesome events with great chefs. I mean, little videos with great chefs. They used to torture me. It was a reason when Monte Rio came was a big part of that, because my editor Jeremy used to blind taste me on wines he bought at Trader Joe's, like 15 and under. And it was like constantly Coppola wines were always last, and I would just fucking shit all over because they were blind tastings, legit blind tastings. And I was like, this guy's gonna kill me. Like I'm literally gonna wake up with a horse head in here. Exactly. Fucking with the wrong human being. But they were always horrible. And so I was like, why is there such bad and if you want, I did sparkling wines one time, and that was what set me on the course of wanting to do the forced carbonated Skull White. Because I was like, I remember tasting those sparkling wines. They were so bad. I mean, so bad. California, like Cook's and Corbel. And oh my god! So in Corbel, I want to love. I mean, it's in my backyard.
Right,
in fact,
every day.
If I wanted to make a vineyard that was almost from Monte Rio, like I should be kissing their ass to get some Chardonnay from that vineyard that's right out there on the highway, River Road. Yeah, 116. Like that vineyard is the closest you can get to Monte Rio. Right. But they're never going to sell me grapes because I shit all over their wines in a video too. So anyway,
fantastic.
Next time. Thank you guys again.
Thanks for coming in, man.
Yeah, appreciate it.
In the middle of bottling and the whole deal. Barrels on the truck. You gotta get those back into the winery.
Back to go. Yeah. Cool.
Cool.
Well, thanks
Patrick,
again,
thank you, Jesus. Thank you.
Appreciate you both.
Subscribe, review, tell your friends, only if they're cool.
Drink more Carignan.
Yeah, drink more Carignan.
Sweet.
Just turn it off.